After the success of Weak Hero Class 1 in 2022, fans of the series couldn't wait to see the second season, but now that it has aired, most viewers feel very disappointed. The first season of the show follows the story of model student Yeon Shi Eun, played by Park Ji-hoon, who is smart but physically weak and stands up to the people in his school who mistreat others. Using his wit and his mental skills, he tries to protect himself and his friends, but he sometimes ends up in grave danger. Over time, he gains two allies in An Soo-ho, who is the strongest fighter in the class and is played by Choi Hyun-wook, and Oh Bom-sok, the tormented son of an assemblyman who is portrayed by Hong Kyung. Working together, the three students try to survive and defeat the group of delinquents in their school. While this might seem like just another K-drama focused on school mistreatment, this series adds something fresh to the genre, as it focuses more on the friendship between the protagonists rather than the conflict against the delinquents. The series has been applauded for its more realistic portrayal of harassment in Korean schools, and even though some scenes are a bit exaggerated, the show still feels closer to real life than many other dramas with the same theme. Also, an important aspect of the plot of Weak Hero Class 1 is the story of the delinquents and how they turned to violence not just because they wanted to mistreat others, but as a consequence of their own personal struggles. Thanks to the emotional depth of the characters, many viewers could relate to them more and many fans formed a connection with the protagonists. However, the series also features a lot of great action scenes, which make the show much more dynamic. In fact, the performance of the leading actors has been praised, especially for how well they did in their action scenes. The show also features a lot of interesting plot twists, including the devastating betrayal of Bom-sok, who turns on his friends and almost takes down Soo-ho. Following this shocking turn, Shi-eun promises to get revenge on Bom-sok, but in the end, he can't get himself to hurt someone he considered a friend. The first season ends with Soo-ho still in a coma, while Bom-sok is sent by his father to a school in the Philippines. Shi-eun is also forced to leave the school and transfer to a new one, but as soon as he joins his new class, he's once again targeted by delinquents. Shi-eun defends himself by attacking the person who harassed him with a pen, but this results in him making a lot of enemies in his new school. The first season ends with the tease of the formation of an alliance of delinquents who aim to take down Shi-eun. While this story has been praised by many viewers, most people don't know that the plot is very different from the webtoon the series is based on. The original story begins when Shi-eun transfers to his new school, and the events of season 1 are only seen in flashbacks. The live-action adaptation also adds a lot of new characters, including the main antagonist, and changes various aspects of the portrayal of the protagonists. For example, in the drama, Soo-ho is a strong and fearless fighter, while in the webtoon, he's a simple student who's intelligent but lacks motivation. Also, in the drama, Bom-sok struggles with being lonely and having been harassed in his previous school, while in the webtoon, he's jealous of Soo-ho's popularity. These differences caused a lot of discussion among fans, but many appreciated the changes, arguing that the drama gave the characters more complexity, enriching the Weak Hero universe and making the protagonists more relatable to a wider audience by exploring their past. Since the webtoon begins where season 1 ends, fans couldn't wait to see the sequel, as Weak Hero Class 2 promised to finally show the events of the original story. Also, because of how the first season ends, it was clear that Soo-ho and Bom-sok wouldn't return in the sequel, so everyone was curious to see how the new characters would be portrayed. Anticipation for the second season of the show was really high, and the hype only grew with every new teaser and trailer, so fans were happy to finally see the original characters from the webtoon come to life. Just like what happened in season 1, in the sequel, Shi-eun allies himself with other students, most notably Park Hoo-min, who's played by Ryun. Together with their friends, the protagonists aim to fight against the ruthless gang led by the vicious Nabek Jin, played by Bae Na-ra. This group, which was teased at the end of season 1, represents a much bigger threat to Shi-eun than anything he's faced previously. However, this is where the problems of Weak Hero Class 2 begin. Many viewers feel like the idea of a school gang alliance that basically operates as a full-blown crime syndicate is too overblown and extremely unrealistic, especially considering that the members of this group are all supposed to be high school students. There's actually quite a notable noticeable visual dissonance in the appearance of these students, as most of them are portrayed by actors in their mid to late 20s, while Na-ra is even older, as he's 34 years old. Even though the production team clearly did their best to make the cast look much younger, it's almost impossible to hide the large difference in age between the characters and the actors who portray them, and this aspect completely breaks the immersion in the show. However, this is far from being the worst problem of the show, as the plot also ended up being very disappointing. The series was supposed to explore the deep relationship between friends-turned-rivals Hoon and Baekjin, but even though their story occupies a lot of screen time, it still lacks impact. Instead, their motivations seem weak and underdeveloped, and their escalating conflict lacks convincing buildup and ends up feeling very underwhelming. This is a stark difference from season 1, which instead was applauded for the emotional depth of its characters. Another huge difference between the first and second season regards the action scenes. While season 1 had a lot of great action, season 2 doesn't really deliver on this aspect. The first few episodes include some intense and fast-paced fights with solid choreography, but as the series goes on, the action scenes become more and more disappointing. The illusion completely breaks towards the end of the show when Shi Eun takes on a massive school gang, and his punches visibly miss, to the point that it's hard to ignore how fake the whole fight looks. The weak dialogue also doesn't help save the show, as often the characters end up muttering some cringe-worthy melodramatic line that's supposed to build up tension but instead feels completely unrealistic. Since the show fails to create strong bonds between the main characters, even the most intense lines don't leave a lasting impression. In fact, nothing can really impress viewers, as the show goes through the entire story way too fast and everything feels very rushed. The fights are too quick, including the final one. The entire backstories of some characters are explained in 5-minute conversations, and antagonists are defeated before even establishing who they are and what their motives are. Because of how rushed the story is, sometimes it's unclear how one plot point leads to the next, and the drama doesn't even establish why many events happen and how they lead to the final confrontation, making the whole story confusing and underwhelming. Another reason why Weak Hero Class 2 fails to deliver is that it completely deviates from the original story. Fans of the Webtoon saw season 1 as a prequel to the real story and a way to build anticipation towards the events of season 2. Instead, they were met with a completely different plot, which removed a lot of interesting characters from the Webtoon and entirely changed the backstories of the new protagonists and antagonists. The Webtoon deeply explores Shi Eun's feelings and struggles as he finds out how to face the members of the school gang one by one. The original story builds up on each new fight, and Shi Eun gradually works his way up from the lower ranks of the gang until he reaches the mastermind behind all the harassment, Baekjin. Instead, in the drama, the stories of the antagonists run in parallel, and their motivations are either not fleshed out well or completely underwhelming. With this change, the original idea of the Webtoon of dismantling an entire power structure based on violence in the drama becomes just a minor struggle to shut down an illegal business. Meanwhile, the genius ideas and calculating personality of Shi Eun don't shine as they did in season 1, and he often feels more passive. This problem is also linked with the rushed pace of the show, as Shi Eun doesn't even have time to study his opponents, and when he does, it's hard to understand his reasoning. Now, fans of the show are extremely dissatisfied with Weak Hero Class 2, and even though most people have praised the acting of the leads, many viewers are complaining that the series has been completely butchered. Netizens are expressing their anger towards the production team, lamenting the weak writing, the rushed story, and especially how they changed the plot of the original Webtoon too much. In the end, what was one of the most anticipated sequels of the past few years turned out to be a huge disappointment, adding to a long list of K-dramas that became very successful with their first season, only to be ruined by the second season.